AEW President Tony Khan calls out social media as he asserts that much of anti-AEW online community is not real and is spearheaded by bots. Let's discuss this interesting AEW news story. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are some very interesting news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling. We're going to just focus tonight purely on this Tony Khan story. Frankly, for all transparency, it's been a bit of a crazy day, so I wasn't even sure I would have time to film a video for you guys this evening. But once I saw this Tony Khan Twitter tirade. I don't know if it's necessarily a tirade, but certainly it's a tweet or a series of tweets that have got a lot of people talking, and it regards, I guess, the just general toxicity that is social media, but specifically towards AEW. I've got a lot of opinions on this, and this comes from someone that's obviously a pro wrestling fan, but myself, I've worked in digital marketing for about 5 years now, so I've worked in social media for around that period of time, so on both sides of as a content creator and also for companies and all that kind of stuff. So I've got quite a few opinions on this one. So if you're not familiar, it's blowing up all over social media at the moment. AEW owner, CEO, and general manager Tony Khan posted a flurry of tweets this afternoon calling out, quote, an army of bots that he claims mobilizes anti-AEW opinions online. This is what Tony Khan said, quote, an independent study has confirmed that much of the staunch anti-AEW online community aren't real individuals. It's a staff running thousands of accounts and an army of bots to signal boost them. Look closely, these aren't real people. Who'd pay for such a wildly expensive thing? Now, Tony Khan did not specify which independent study he was citing. He later encouraged his followers on Twitter to look into the matter for themselves while promoting tonight's episode of AEW Rampage. Quote, research this one yourselves, Khan wrote. You internet detectives thrive in these situations. Speaking of wild things, you won't want to miss Jon Moxley versus Wheeler Yuta on AEW Rampage tonight. But it did not end there. Tony Khan later added to his string of tweets, quote, their boiler room staff is going to be working overtime on a Friday, and I love it, Khan tweeted. Tony Khan tweeted just again minutes later. He further speculated on the veracity of some social media accounts. Quote, ever wonder why so much of the activity of these accounts is retweets and replies, Khan added. Like who actually has 80% of their activity as straight up retweets? Now, a lot of people initially were like, is this even real? Is this kind of a spoof on something that we're not getting? Honestly, when I first saw it, I thought, oh, am I missing something? Has something happened? Because you never know, pro wrestling social media moves so quickly. I thought, has someone tweeted something like this, and is he doing a parody of that to be like, I'm this cool CEO president that understands what's going on in the world of online? And that's not the case. He's being legitimate. He is being legitimate. Now, Wrestling Inc., who, full transparency, of course, I have ties to, but Wrestling Inc. Have an exclusive and a clarification on Tony Khan's Army of Bots tweet. He speaks about this, army of bots, if you will. And shortly after running the story on the tweets, Wrestling Inc. reached out to Tony Khan for clarification on his tweet. Now, Khan responded by giving examples to illustrate what he says his expert confirmed during their investigation. Quote, waiting for final study, but here's what my expert confirmed. It's people with real live accounts making posts and then using their bots to manipulate the social channel algorithm by backing them up with engagement from made-up Twitter identity. Social media teams will often fight on this. Bots are great for numbers, and when they're gone, you'll see a dip in digital conversation impressions, but both those were either negative sentiment or not real anyway. For example, I tweet Mega only eats rotten bananas. I throw, say, 18 bots behind it, which takes about 5 minutes to do. Twitter security can't differentiate when done well. Neither can most social teams. The problem becomes every time people type Mega into the search bar, because of a real account supported by bots, the first suggested result would be tweets about Mega eating rotten bananas. I'm oversimplifying, but that's the 5-cent version of what's happening. Now, I'm not sure if that is oversimplifying, but these are my thoughts on it. So, granted, again, that's a lot to kind of take in, and imagine trying to follow it in real time, and I guess living what's going on in Tony Khan's head. Okay, so from my perspective, when it comes to let's just try and break it down in a somewhat of a logical manner. The idea that social media bots exist and can signal boost tweets is a very, very, very real thing. If you think that none of this kind of stuff exists, unfortunately, you're not living in reality. Social media is very easily manipulated anyway, but there are companies out. I mean, you just do a Google search. Again, this comes from someone who's worked in social media and in the past has had clients use bots to try and inflate their social media metrics, whether it's likes, retweets, followers, you name it. It's not hard to signal boost tweets. It's not hard to find companies that will do that for you. It's not difficult at all. And so that is a real thing. It's also a real thing that big companies, and this isn't a pro wrestling thing either, it's in all kinds of business, it's a very real thing that companies may pay about or have a certain budget, part of their social media budget, their digital budget, into paying companies to signal boost both positive and negative opinions. Positive opinions about their product, about their service, about their customer service, about their whatever, and also create negative discussion points, negative opinions, negative posts about their competition, and also signal boost them. That happens in politics, it happens in entertainment, it happens in business, it happens in life. Social media is not regulated, of course, and it's a very murky field that even today, the Pandora's box has been opened when it comes to it, so it's very difficult to control. There's a lot of manipulation going on there. There's an abundance of information that people, frankly, almost aren't willing to kind of dive deeper into or want to understand because it takes too much work. And for whatever reason, human nature is you kind of, whatever you read, you kind of take on face value, which that isn't going to be the case. And companies, social media companies, entertainment companies, whatever companies manipulate that. So the concept that Tony Khan is talking about here when it comes to signal boosting, putting false stories out there, signal boosting, positive and negative things, and creating accounts of people that don't exist, or people having multiple accounts, or companies having multiple accounts, all that kind of stuff is a very, very, very real thing. And social media agencies make a pretty penny from doing that. So the concept is not completely out there. My thing with it is this. Do I think, and this is what he's basically hinting at, he's suggesting that maybe WWE is funding or paying for bots, or paying for people for bots to signal boost negative things about AEW. I'm sure there's an element of truth in that. I don't doubt that. I don't, because I'm sure WWE is a track record when it comes to competitors, even though they really shouldn't be that worried, in my opinion, about AEW when they've just done a tremendous amount of business with WrestleMania weekend. They made $1 billion in revenue last year. They shouldn't really care, but they do. So I'm sure that there's part of WWE, they're involved in all that situation. They counter-programming AEW several times. But Tony Khan's also got to kind of get his head out of his rear end and be like, actually, quite a lot of the negative reaction, say, to AEW on social media is not from paid individuals. It's not from fake people or people that have multiple accounts. There are some people that just don't like AEW, and there is a very big divide on social media, not just in pro wrestling, but in life. Look on politics, look on anything, whether it's pro wrestling. Of course, myself, I have a background in professional football over here in the UK. Life and humans they're tribal by nature, but certainly now with social media over the past 5-10 years have become increasingly tribal, and if you don't have the same opinion as someone else, they're an idiot, they're stupid, they're illogical, they don't know what's going on, they don't understand, and people troll people, and people live to troll on social media, and they like making people suffer, and they're bullies, and they harass them, and all that kind of stuff. That is social media. Social media is a cesspool of human activity, and people voice their opinions. People like to get reactions out of people. I mentioned it several times recently that it kind of blows my mind, and this is on both sides of the aisle here when it comes to AEW and WWE, that you've got these accounts that are dedicated, and again, these aren't paid people. They're just dedicated to telling you why you shouldn't watch either AEW or WWE. Look at this botch, look at this botch, or look at this terrible camera work, or this guy or girl sucks, they're terrible, that promo work was bad, and if you watch this, you're an idiot. Whilst at the same time, if the company they like does the same thing, it's brilliant, it's grand, it's genius. The Cody Rhodes thing's a great example. There are WWE fans that would see Cody Rhodes in AEW and say, he's a WWE reject, and he's only a mid-carder at best, and then he comes to WWE, and now they're saying, he's a main eventer, he's come back home, and it's like, well, you weren't saying that a couple of weeks ago, and people are just, that's it, you know? And again, whilst the concept that Tony Khan is talking about is real, and, well, I'm sure there probably is an element of truth to it, I also look at it as, why are you so rattled? Why be so rattled? And if you are that rattled, what purpose does it serve by putting it on social media? Do you really want the president of your company, the CEO, the head of creative, whatever other titles he has, what does he benefit by putting that on social media? What look does that give him? It just gives him the look of someone that, you know, can't handle that people don't like some of his stuff, or can't handle some of his, you know, some criticism on his product or on his booking. Tony Khan's booking and product is not perfect. I've got my issues with it. I think the women's division still, whilst it has improved, needs a ton of work. I don't think every match on the show has to have a post-match brawl. I mean, there is so much in there. You know, that's just the problem. No booking is perfect. You can pick faults in every show, and you're not going to have ever. If you're in this line of work, if you're in entertainment, if you're on social media, you have to understand that nobody is going to unanimously agree with you. There are always going to be critics, and you tend just to have to just ignore them. And it just, to me, it came off as something, whilst he's pointing out something that is, you know, probably legitimately, no, is somewhat accurate. Again, the concept of it is somewhat accurate, and I'm sure that, you know, people signal boosting negative tweets or negative opinions about AEW is certainly true, but that's not just about AEW. I'm sure the same thing goes on from WWE with other forms of entertainment. It happens in every company. It's a social media problem. It's not an AEW problem. And what does he benefit? The only thing I could think of as to what his grand plan is with this is that he just wants to get people talking about him and AEW to watch Rampage tonight. But I don't really know if that achieves that either. It just, the look on him just doesn't look good, and it's just odd. And there have been a couple of times of AEW's history where he's done tweets that, like, I remember on the rare occasion that NXT would beat AEW in the ratings in terms of viewership, and he'd go off on one on social media. He'd do an endless thread of tweets about, the rating is more important, it doesn't matter, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, mate, you win like 9 out of 10 weeks. It's not a problem. And, you know, I'm almost I've lost for words, because you can't bat, 100%, and you're always going to have your critics. And again, it's not the concepts talking about when it comes to signal boosting of fake accounts and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's very real, and I'm sure AEW is affected by it as well, but you also have to look at these things in totality. And then it's a social media problem. It happens in every form of industry. It happens for probably every company. It happens for athletes. It happens for politicians. I mean, whenever there's an election on, the amount of false news that's out there, again, for both parties or for whatever party, or stories, and that's social media. That's how it works. That's the problem. And there should be reform of, to actually open a social media account, you have to give your passport, your identity, or you have to verify. All that kind of stuff should happen. But until that does, you're going to have situations like this. But I also say, why are you getting involved? Why? What benefit does that do for you? And it just comes across as someone, in my opinion, that for whatever reason on Friday afternoon is just completely rattled. Because I guess for the last at least 7 days, but probably the last couple of weeks, people haven't been talking as much about AEW. There was a point last year around All Out time where all people would talk about was AEW because it was CM Punk coming in, it was Bryan Danielson coming in, it was All Out, and they were doing record business for the company, and they're still doing very good business. They're still doing very good shows, but it's April, which means that people are talking about WWE, people are talking about WrestleMania, and in fairness to WWE, they knocked it out of the park, and people are talking about Cody Rhodes because of the presentation that WWE did of Cody Rhodes last weekend, and I guess maybe Tony Khan's rattled about that situation as well, and because people are saying, oh, you know, why did AEW let him go? How did they let that happen? And all that kind of stuff. But that's pro wrestling, and that's life. AEW have got Double or Nothing coming up on the horizon. They've got All Out coming up later on in the year, and again, the attention will go back onto them because it'll be their time of the year. And I don't really see, like I said, what this whole, you know, Twitter, I don't want to say tirade, but just excuses. For me, it's just not the look. I just don't think it's the right look. And whilst, again, some of the stuff he's saying is very true. And, you know, that's social media. But it's just, what does that do? Or what does that do? And also as well, those people that legitimately don't like AEW, which there are a lot of them out there, and there are those social media accounts that feed off this kind of stuff, that you're giving them ammunition. It's a layup. It's an absolute layup for them. And I also wonder what the talent thinks. If I'm an AEW wrestler and I'm seeing my boss do this, I'm like, why? What look does that give? And I understand that Tony Khan isn't like Vince McMahon, because people say, oh, Vince McMahon would never do this. Well, Vince McMahon, even at his age, probably barely understands what Twitter is anyway. He definitely doesn't run his account. But people like, you know, Triple H or other senior people in the company, Nick Khan, a very tech-savvy person, you don't see him doing stuff like that on social media because it's just not a good look. It's just, that's the thing, it's not a good look. But I'm sure it is getting a lot of people talking. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Be sure to like and subscribe to Wrestle News 365, and I'll speak for you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.